At our anniversary dinner, she stood up and gave a toast. A perfect little speech under soft restaurant lights, her glass raised high, voice steady. "To everyone who matters in my life," she said. Then she smiled, wide, confident, glowing in that white silk dress she'd bought just for tonight. She thanked her parents for their support, her coworkers for keeping her sane, her best friend for always having her back. Everyone laughed, clapped. Even the waiter smiled. And I sat there, her husband of 7 years, waiting for my name. It never came. Not once. Her best friend, Lauren, shot me a look. The kind of look people give a man who's just realized he's invisible. When the applause faded, Lauren leaned in and whispered, "Rough night." I smiled back, slow and calm. "Last one, actually." That's when something inside me shifted. Not anger, not heartbreak, just the quiet click of understanding, like a door closing behind you. She didn't forget me. She erased me. And that's different. When dinner ended, she posed for photos with everyone, her family, her friends, the same group that had been slowly replacing me for months. She wrapped her arms around her boss in a half hug, laughing a little too easily. She was radiant, unbothered. And when she finally looked my way, it wasn't with love. It was obligation. A tired smile, like I was another errand she needed to check off before dessert. On the drive home, she scrolled through her phone, posting pictures from the night. "Such a perfect evening with everyone who means the world to me." The caption read. I stared at the reflection of her screen in the windshield. She never even looked up. When we got home, I didn't speak. Didn't follow her upstairs. I just sat in the kitchen, the hum of the refrigerator filling the silence. Her keys hit the counter. Her heels clicked across the tile. A moment later, the shower turned on. I opened my phone and scrolled through her post again. The photo looked perfect, like a couple in love. Except I knew the truth. That photo was a tombstone for something already dead. At 2 a.m., I walked into our closet. Half the hangers were empty by morning. I left my keys on the counter next to hers. She wouldn't notice right away. Maybe not for a day or two. But when she did, when she realized I didn't leave a note, didn't slam a door, didn't beg for closure, that silence would be louder than any goodbye. By sunrise, I was gone. No message. No explanation. Just a clean exit. My phone buzzed once, her best friend again. "You okay?" I typed back one word. "Better." Then I tossed the phone on the passenger seat of my Ford and drove. The highway stretched out ahead, endless and empty. And for the first time in years, so was I. The brands used in this story are Ford, Apple, implicitly through her phone, will appear later, Netflix, Starbucks, and Peloton. These will subtly repeat in future parts to maintain continuity and realism. She didn't notice I was gone right away. That was the part that hit hardest later, how easy it was for her not to see me. The morning after our anniversary, she slept in, sunlight spilling across her side of the bed. My side was already cold. The closet door stood open, half empty, but she didn't look. She made her coffee, checked her phone, and probably smiled at all the likes under her post from last night. The picture-perfect dinner. The smiling husband in the background. A lie wrapped in lighting filters. I was already 3 hours away, sitting in a small-town diner that smelled like burnt coffee and bacon grease. My Ford was parked outside, still coated in city dust. I remember staring at the chipped rim of my mug and thinking how peaceful it felt to not be needed. No buzzing phone. No constant edge of walking on eggshells. Just silence and black coffee. When the waitress asked if I wanted a refill, I said yes, and meant it. That first day, I didn't check my messages. I didn't need to. I knew the pattern. She'd text when she realized I wasn't answering her morning question or reacting to her stories. It would start casual, then urgent, then confused. By the time I finally turned my phone back on that night in a cheap roadside motel, there were 6 messages waiting. "Where are you? Did something happen? Can you just call me?" The tone shifted fast. No apology, no self-awareness, just annoyance wrapped in concern. I didn't reply. She called once around midnight. I let it ring until it stopped. Then again, an hour later. I turned the phone face down and lay there staring at the ceiling, listening to the hum of the motel air conditioner. I didn't feel anger, just distance. A kind of quiet clarity that felt cleaner than any argument we'd ever had. The next morning, I bought new clothes, simple stuff, nothing she would have picked. Jeans, a gray hoodie, a pair of sunglasses from a gas station rack. I deleted our shared Apple account, and set up a new one under my own name. Clean slate. I grabbed a coffee from Starbucks and sat in the car, watching the highway stretch ahead. By the time she started calling my friends, I knew it. She'd try to piece together where I went. Maybe even blame herself in front of them. The modern performance of regret. But what she wouldn't understand is that my silence wasn't punishment. It was freedom. That night, as I scrolled through the news on my phone, I noticed she'd finally posted something new, a quote about growth and gratitude. No mention of me, of course, just another performance. But beneath that polished image, she was unraveling. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel the need to fix it. By the third day, she started calling from different numbers. Work phone, her best friend's line, even a blocked ID once, as if I wouldn't recognize the silence that followed when I picked up. I didn't answer any of them. I just watched the screen light up and fade, one call after another, until the phone finally stopped ringing. That quiet was addictive. It wasn't revenge. It was release. I stayed in a small Airbnb near the coast, a place that smelled like salt and would smoke. The owner had left a note that said, "Enjoy the view." So I did. I walked along the shoreline, bought a cheap pair of running shoes, and started jogging every morning. The air felt clean, unfiltered. My head finally matched it. For the first time in years, I didn't feel like I was being measured against someone else's expectations. When I checked my phone later that evening, I saw she'd posted a story on Instagram. A candlelit dinner table, an empty wine glass, and the caption, "Sometimes people show who they really are when it's too late." I almost laughed. That was her, rewriting the narrative. Making herself the wounded one, the misunderstood woman left behind by a heartless man. Her best friend, Lauren, commented with a heart emoji. The same friend who'd whispered "rough night" at dinner. I imagined them talking, analyzing me over overpriced cocktails, convincing each other this was my breakdown, not her consequence. But she didn't know what I knew. She didn't know that I'd already emptied the joint account, canceled the shared subscriptions, Netflix, Hulu, even that Peloton app she swore she couldn't live without. It wasn't revenge. It was symmetry. She wanted to live independently, unbothered, untethered. Now she could. That night, I sat on the porch watching the sky turn from pink to black. I thought about all the little moments that had led here. The dinners where she'd be on her phone the whole time. The way she'd correct my stories mid-sentence, like my version of the past wasn't valid unless she approved it. The affection she rationed out like a reward for good behavior. It all looked different from a distance. Clearer. Around midnight, I finally answered one of her texts. Just one word, safe. That was all I gave her. No location, no explanation. She replied 3 minutes later, "Can we talk?" I didn't answer. Instead, I turned off the phone again, leaned back, and let the waves do what they always do, erase footprints, one by one. By morning, I wasn't thinking about her post or her guilt. I was thinking about what comes next. Because the truth was, she hadn't lost me overnight. She'd been losing me for years. I'd just stopped reminding her. By the end of the week, her messages had shifted from confusion to accusation. I could almost hear her voice through the screen. Sharp, brittle, desperate. "You're being cruel," she wrote. "After everything we've been through, you just disappear?" I read it twice, then locked the phone and set it face down beside my coffee. It was a quiet morning at a small cafe overlooking the water. The kind of place she would have hated. No Wi-Fi, no curated playlist, no one to impress. Just people drinking black coffee and existing. I fit right in. I'd been there long enough for the barista to know my order. A tall Americano and a slice of banana bread. The kind of detail she used to notice, once. The kind she hadn't in years. As I sat there, I realized how strange it felt to be entirely unreachable. No calendar reminders tied to her phone, no shared grocery lists, no expectations. Just me, breathing. Somewhere along the way, I had mistaken her approval for peace. Now I finally knew the difference. Later that day, I checked my email. There it was, an invitation to dinner from her address. Subject line, closure. That word had always bothered me. Closure wasn't real. It was just a way for guilty people to feel better about the damage they'd done. I didn't respond. I didn't even delete it. I just let it sit there, unopened, like a tombstone marking the end of something already buried. That night, I walked along the pier, watching the reflection of the streetlights ripple across the dark water. My phone buzzed again, this time a text from Lauren. "She's not okay," it read. At least tell her you're alive. I smiled at the irony. For years, I had been invisible right in front of her. Now, my absence had finally made me visible. I sent Lauren a single line. Alive isn't the same as available. Then I turned my phone off and slipped it into my jacket pocket. The air smelled like rain, heavy and clean. I hadn't realized how much noise she used to bring into my life. Constant words, constant performance. Now, the silence was addictive. When I got back to the Airbnb, I made a small fire in the pit outside. The wood cracked softly as it burned. I sat there, drinking a cheap beer, thinking about how quiet endings always make the deepest sound. Somewhere back in that city, she was probably spinning the story, painting herself as the one abandoned, the one wronged. That was fine. Let her. The truth doesn't need to defend itself. It just waits, quietly, until someone can finally hear it. A week later, she finally showed up. I knew she would. That kind of ego can't survive silence for long. I saw her car before she saw me. The same white Lexus she said she bought for work convenience. She pulled up by the pier, stepped out, and scanned the crowd like she expected me to just appear and apologize for ruining her narrative. I stayed seated at the cafe across the street, my coffee cooling beside me. Watching her look around was like watching someone search for a ghost they'd already buried. She looked different. Not sad, not broken, just hollow. The kind of hollow that comes after a performance ends and there's no audience left to clap. She walked down to the edge of the dock, phone in hand, probably rehearsing the perfect "we talked" and its complicated caption for later. I didn't move. I let her sit with the silence she'd once used like a weapon. Now it was mine. She eventually turned, spotted me through the window, and froze. For a second, I saw something real flicker in her eyes. Not regret, recognition. The realization that the man sitting across the street wasn't hers anymore. She walked over slowly, as if careful not to scare off what she'd already lost. When she reached my table, she didn't sit. Just stood there, arms crossed, searching for control. "You really just left?" she said. Her tone was soft, but it trembled underneath. I looked up at her, calm. "You really didn't notice?" She blinked, caught off guard. There it was again, that half-second of shock before she could rebuild her composure. She started to speak, but I cut her off before she could rewrite the story. "You gave a speech thanking everyone who mattered to you," I said. "And now you're surprised I believed you." Her lips parted, but no words came out. She tried to hold my gaze, but it broke. She looked down, fingers tightening around her phone, like it might save her. When she finally whispered, "Can we just talk?" I shook my head. "Talking is what got us here," I said. I stood, left a few bills on the table, and walked past her toward the boardwalk. I could feel her eyes on my back, but I didn't turn around. The wind carried the faint smell of salt and coffee. The kind of scent that feels permanent, even when it's not. That night, she posted a photo. The sunset, the ocean, the caption. Sometimes endings are just new beginnings. But I didn't check it myself. Someone else sent it to me. I just laughed quietly and closed the message. She still didn't understand. For her, it was a story to tell. For me, it was the end of one. And I was already writing something new. The next few days passed quietly, too quietly for her. I knew that kind of silence eats people like her alive. She needed noise, attention, validation, constant mirrors reflecting back her importance. Without it, she'd start to unravel, and that's exactly what happened. She began calling again, this time leaving voicemails. Her tone shifted from calm to pleading to something that almost sounded like panic. "We can fix this," she said in one of them. "Whatever this is, we can fix it." I listened once, then deleted it. The thing she never understood was that there wasn't anything left to fix. What she broke wasn't love. It was respect. I started building a new rhythm. Morning runs before the sun came up, coffee from the same quiet cafe, evenings spent at the gym or walking by the water. I wasn't escaping her anymore. I was replacing her. The noise in my head was gone, replaced by something cleaner, simpler. I got used to the sound of my own thoughts again. That might have been the most dangerous thing of all. One night, I saw her name appear on my phone again, but this time it wasn't a call. It was a photo. Her, at our old apartment, sitting on the couch, my hoodie draped over her shoulders. The message said, "Came to get the rest of my things. It feels weird without you here." For a moment, I just stared at it. The room looked smaller than I remembered, emptier. Maybe it always was, and I'd just been too distracted trying to fill it. I didn't respond. Later that night, a friend texted me. He'd run into her at a bar downtown. She didn't look great, he said. Kept asking about you. I thanked him, then set the phone down. It wasn't satisfaction I felt. It was distance, like hearing about a stranger who shared my old name. Around midnight, I went for a drive. The highway was empty, the world washed in silver light. I turned off the radio and rolled the window down. The air was cold, sharp, alive. It felt good. Somewhere between the sound of the wind and the hum of the tires, I realized something simple. She wasn't chasing me. She was chasing the control she lost when I stopped playing my part. When I finally pulled over at a gas station, I caught my reflection in the glass. I didn't look like the man she used to dismiss. My shoulders were squared, eyes calm, face lighter somehow. The weight was gone. For the first time in years, I wasn't the one waiting for her to come home. She was the one waiting for silence to answer back. By the second week, her silence finally matched mine. No calls, no texts, just absence. But I knew her too well to believe it meant peace. When people like her go quiet, it's never acceptance, it's calculation. She was rebuilding the story. The version where she wasn't the one left behind, but the one who let go. I saw it unfold online before she could even block me. A new photo, a new caption. Healing looks different on everyone. I almost admired the speed of it. Her ability to turn heartbreak into a performance. But what she didn't realize was that this time, no one was clapping. A few of our old friends reached out. The kind who live off gossip disguised as concern. They wanted to know what happened, what I did, what she said. I told them nothing. Just that I was fine. That word bothered her the most. Fine. It meant I'd stopped bleeding, stopped waiting. It meant the story no longer revolved around her. Meanwhile, my world had shifted in ways she couldn't imagine. My mornings started earlier, my nights ended cleaner. I joined a local gym near the coast, the kind that smelled like sweat and sea salt, not the fancy one she used to drag me to because they had better lighting. I talked to people again, strangers, co-workers, anyone who wasn't her. I laughed, actually laughed, for the first time in months. And the strangest part was how natural it felt. Like I hadn't been missing her at all, just missing myself. One evening, I went out for a run near the pier. The sky was bleeding orange into dark blue, and the waves crashed hard enough to drown out everything else. I stopped by a small kiosk, grabbed a bottle of water, and saw her reflection before I saw her face. She was standing at the edge of the boardwalk, arms folded, watching me. No phone, no audience, just her. I didn't walk over. I didn't wave. I just watched her from a distance, the same way she'd watched me disappear. After a moment, she turned, eyes finding mine across the fading light. There was something new there, something small, human, almost scared. She opened her mouth like she wanted to speak, then thought better of it. She just nodded once, turned, and walked away. No words, no closure. Just two people who used to know each other, finally silent for the same reason. As I walked back to my car, I realized that was the first honest conversation we'd had in years. No noise, no pretending. Just truth, quiet and complete. And it said everything that needed to be said. The night after I saw her on the boardwalk, I couldn't sleep. Not because I missed her, but because of the look in her eyes. That flicker of uncertainty, like she was finally starting to see the weight of what she'd lost. I lay there listening to the hum of the air conditioner, the kind of steady noise that used to feel like background sound. Now it felt like rhythm. My own quiet heartbeat reminding me that I had survived something I never thought I'd walk away from. The next morning, I got up before sunrise. I ran until my lungs burned and my legs ached, until the thoughts in my head had no room left to circle back to her. When I stopped, the ocean was calm again. I stood there, staring at it, realizing that peace doesn't come when you forgive someone. It comes when you stop needing to understand them. That afternoon, I checked my messages for the first time in days. There was one from her. No caption, no apology. Just a photo of the two of us from years ago, laughing at something I couldn't remember. Underneath, she'd typed 4 words. You didn't even try. I stared at the message for a long time. Then I locked my phone and set it face down. She still didn't get it. Trying had been all I'd done. For years. The silence now wasn't avoidance. It was the only honest response left. Later that night, I met an old friend for a drink. He asked if I'd heard from her. I said yes, but my voice didn't carry the weight it used to. He nodded slowly, then said something simple. You look lighter. I didn't answer right away, Just took a sip of my beer and stared out the window. Maybe I am, I finally said. And I meant it. As I drove home, I thought about the version of me she'd known. The one who used to chase, to explain, to fix. That man had died quietly somewhere between her last lie and my first moment of peace. I parked outside the Airbnb, turned off the engine, and sat there in the dark. No music, no phone, just stillness. When I looked at my reflection in the rearview mirror, I didn't see a broken man. I saw someone rebuilding, quietly, deliberately. I saw someone who no longer needed closure from her, because he'd already closed the door himself. And behind that silence, for the first time, there was nothing left to prove. 2 weeks passed before I saw her again. I wasn't expecting it. I'd gone back to the city for the first time since leaving, just to pick up some paperwork from my old office. It felt strange walking through familiar streets that no longer belonged to me. The noise, the lights, the rush, all of it felt like a life I'd already lived and buried. I stopped at a Starbucks near our old apartment, ordered my coffee black, and sat by the window. That's when I saw her. She was across the street, standing by the bookstore we used to visit on Sundays. Her hair was shorter now, her posture heavier. She wasn't looking for me. She was just there, living in the wreckage we both helped build. She looked smaller somehow. Not physically, spiritually. Like the version of her that once filled every room had finally deflated. I watched as she took a phone call, gesturing quickly, then laughing that hollow kind of laugh people use when they're pretending to be okay. A man walked up behind her, tall, well-dressed. She smiled at him, but even from across the street, I could see it didn't reach her eyes. It was the same smile she used to give me near the end. Polite, functional, empty. She didn't see me. And for the first time, I didn't care if she did. I didn't want revenge, or answers, or even acknowledgement. Watching her was like flipping through an old photograph, familiar, but flat. Whatever we were had already faded. All that remained was a quiet acceptance that sometimes the person you love most becomes the stranger you needed to meet to find yourself again. When I stood to leave, I caught my reflection in the window, calm, steady, grounded. I realized I no longer looked like someone trying to escape. I looked like someone who had already left. As I walked toward my car, my phone buzzed. It was a message from an unknown number. "I saw you," it said. No name, no punctuation. Just that. I paused, staring at the screen. Then I smiled faintly and slipped the phone back into my pocket without replying. By the time I started the engine, the city lights had blurred into streaks of gold and gray. I didn't feel anger. I didn't feel nostalgia. I just felt distance, clean, final, earned. She once told me I'd never move on without closure. She was wrong. The truth was, I didn't need her forgiveness. I just needed the silence to last long enough to become peace. And somewhere along the way, it did. It's strange how quiet the world becomes when you finally stop waiting for someone to come back. Months had passed since that last message, the one that said, "I saw you." She never tried again after that. Maybe she understood there was nothing left to say. Maybe she just needed to convince herself I was real one last time before she could let go. Either way, I didn't look back. I'd spent too many years living in the shadow of her moods, her approval, her silence. Now, the silence was mine, and it didn't feel empty anymore. It felt earned. Life built itself slowly after that. I moved to a new apartment overlooking the ocean. Bought a used Ford pickup. Started a small workshop downtown, something I'd always wanted to do, but never had time for when my life revolved around making her comfortable. Mornings began with a run and a coffee from the same Starbucks on the corner. Evenings ended with quiet music and the steady rhythm of tools in my hands. My world had become simple, and in that simplicity, I found something I didn't even realize I'd lost: peace. Sometimes, people from the old life reached out. They'd ask if we ever talked, if I'd forgiven her. I never answered directly. Forgiveness isn't a gift you give someone who broke you. It's the distance you keep once you've healed. I wasn't angry anymore. I just wasn't available. A few weeks ago, I ran into Lauren at the grocery store. She looked surprised to see me, then smiled. "You look good," she said. "She's not doing great, by the way." I just nodded. There was nothing else to say. I paid for my groceries, walked out into the sunlight, and felt something I hadn't felt in years: lightness. That night, I sat on my porch watching the sun melt into the horizon, the sound of waves steady and calm. My phone buzzed once. A memory notification, our anniversary dinner from 2 years ago. The photo popped up, her, glowing, laughing, surrounded by everyone she said mattered. I stared at it for a moment, then deleted it. Not out of anger, not even out of sadness, just because it didn't belong to me anymore. As the last bit of light disappeared, I realized something simple. I didn't disappear to punish her. I disappeared to remember myself. She thought silence would make me desperate. But silence didn't destroy me, it rebuilt me. And the truth is, I never left her to hurt her. I left because I finally learned how to stay gone.